Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really special. The French macaron. You know the one, that little jewel-like pastry? Crisp on the outside, chewy inside, with amazing colors. It's more than just a cookie.
Absolutely. It really is. And what's so fascinating, I think, is how it's become this symbol, not just of dessert, but of real culinary artistry. And it's packed with history that, stretches way beyond just France.
Right. And that's exactly what we want to do today. Our mission for this deep dive is to trace that incredible journey. We're going to look at its history from some pretty humble beginnings, actually,
Mm.
follow how it evolved into this global sensation we see today, and maybe uncover some surprising facts, some key moments that really made it take off worldwide.
Yeah, and for this, we've really tried to go deep. We looked at historical accounts, things like 16th century court records mentioning Catherine de' Medici, but also like modern culinary analyses, stuff
Yeah.
that breaks down the science of why that little foot appears.
The pie.
Exactly, the peds. So the idea is to get a really full picture of how this little thing came to be and why it's, so loved everywhere.
Okay, so when most people think macaron now, they picture that colorful sandwich cookie, right? Filled with ganache or something. But it wasn't always like that. Its history is longer and maybe starts somewhere else entirely.
That's right. The sources we looked at, they pretty consistently point towards Italy, actually. For the sort of ancestor of the macaron, the simple almond cookie, we're talking potentially centuries before it really landed in France.
Italy, interesting. So how did it make its way to France?
Well, the commonly cited story, and it appears in quite a few records, is its arrival in the 16th century, usually linked to Catherine de' Medici.
Ah, the Italian queen who married into the French monarchy.
Exactly. The story goes she brought her Italian chefs and possibly these little almond biscuits with her when she married Henry II. Now, this was obviously a key moment, but it's really important to stress these were not the macarons we know today.
Just simple single cookies.
Simple, single almond biscuits.
Yeah.
Rustic. Nothing like the fancy filled ones we see in shops now.
So for hundreds of years, it was just this basic almond cookie. But did it stay the same across France? Or did different places put their own spin on it even before Paris took over?
Oh, definitely the latter. That's where you see France's amazing regional food traditions come in. Different areas develop their own versions. You had the macaron de Nancy, quite famous, known for being a bit rougher, craggier.
Okay.
And there were others like the Saint-Emilion macaron, which was apparently chewier, and the Montmorillon macaron. Each region kind of adapted it, used local almonds or techniques maybe. It really shows that diversity before the Parisian version became dominant.
Right, so lots of local versions, all single cookies. What was the big leap? The moment it transformed into the modern macaron, the sandwich cookie.
That seems to have happened much later. We're talking early 20th century, and the place was definitely Paris. Now, who exactly deserves the credit? Well, the accounts differ a little.
Ah, the plot thickens.
Yeah, it often points to either the famous pastry house La Durée or specifically Pierre de Fontaine, who was related to the founder of La Durée.
Yeah.
The big idea, the innovation, was taking two of those single shells and sticking them together, usually with like a rich ganache or maybe a buttercream, sometimes jam. That was the game changer.
That simple idea, putting two together with filling, created this whole new thing.
It really did. It wasn't just adding filling. It created a whole different texture profile, a contrast, and it opened the door to, well, endless flavor possibilities. It became a little canvas.
And you mentioned La Durée. They, and maybe other chefs like Pierre Hermé later on, they really ran with this, didn't they? How did they elevate it beyond just being a sandwich cookie to this luxury item?
They were absolutely crucial. La Durée certainly in popularizing it and making it chic. And then chefs like Pierre Hermé, maybe a bit later, really pushed the boundaries. They weren't just making vanilla or chocolate.
Yeah.
They started introducing really innovative, sophisticated flavors. Think Isfahan, his famous rose, lychee, and raspberry combination. They experimented with textures, with surprising pairings. It wasn't just about refining the classic. It was about invention.
Making it high fashion, but for pastry.
Exactly. It mirrored what was happening in Paris and other areas, like fashion, making confectionery into an art form, something beautiful and desirable.
Okay, let's shift from history to the making of it, because they are notoriously difficult. What actually goes into a macaron shell? The basic ingredients.
The list is surprisingly short. which is maybe deceptive. You need finely ground almond flour, really fine. Egg whites, which often need to be aged for a bit.
Age egg whites.
Yeah, but it apparently helps with the structure. The sugar is usually a mix of granulated and powdered sugar. And then, of course, food coloring if you want those vibrant colors. That's optional, but pretty standard now.
Almond flour, egg whites, sugar. Sounds simple enough.
It does, but the precision required is intense. And the technique.
Right, you mentioned macaronage earlier. That sounds technical. What is that process and why is it so important?
Macaronage is, well, it's the mixing stage. After you've combined your meringue with the almond flour and powdered sugar mixture, it's about folding it together just the right amount.
Not too much, not too little.
Exactly. It's incredibly delicate. If you undermix, the shells might be lumpy or have peaks. If you overmix, the batter becomes too runny and they'll spread too much, won't develop the foot.
Ah, the foot again, that little ruffled ridge at the bottom.
Yes, the pied. Getting that perfect, even foot and a smooth, uncracked top surface. That all comes down to nailing the macaronage. It needs to flow like, well, they say like lava. Slowly. It's a real feel thing.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people say they're so hard to make. It sounds like everything has to be perfect.
It really does. And that's why they have this reputation, even among professional bakers, as being one of the trickiest pastries. It's not just the macaronage. Oh, ingredient measurements have to be exact, often by weight, down to the gram. Oven temperature is critical. Even a few degrees off can ruin them. And humidity.
Humidity in the kitchen.
Yes. A humid day can make macarons weep or not dry properly before baking, which leads to cracks. So you need precision in ingredients, technique, temperature, and environment. Any little thing can throw them off.
Wow. Okay, so it's a real labor of love or maybe frustration.
Often both. But I think that difficulty, that challenge, it almost adds to the allure, you know? It reinforces that idea of it being something special, something achieved.
That makes sense. So given all that fussiness, how did this tricky little cookie become such a global superstar?
Yeah.
What drives its popularity today?
I think it's a combination of things. Firstly, just look at them. They're beautiful, the colors, the perfect shape. They're incredibly aesthetically pleasing, very Instagrammable, as they say now.
Definitely.
Then there's the texture. That unique contrast, the delicate, crisp shell giving way to that slightly chewy, moist interior. It's quite distinct.
It really melts in your mouth.
Exactly. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly for its global spread, is the versatility. The basic shell is a relatively neutral canvas for flavor.
So you can fill it with almost anything.
Pretty much. Which leads us to the explosion flavors we see now.
Yeah, I remember when like vanilla, chocolate, coffee, maybe pistachio, that was kind of it. But now, it's wild.
It's incredible, isn't it? You still have the classics, of course.
Yeah.
But modern pastry chefs are constantly experimenting. You see salted caramel everywhere now. That's become almost a new classic.
True.
But then you get really creative things. Floral notes like rose or lavender, often paired with fruit like lychee or raspberry.
The ispahan you mentioned.
Yes. Or exotic fruits, matcha, Earl Grey tea, all sorts of nuts beyond almond, even savory flavors sometimes. Think foie gras or olive oil macarons in some high-end places. Seasonal ones, fusion flavors. The innovation just keeps going.
It sounds like the possibilities are endless. Does that status, that feeling of it being a bit posh, a luxury item, play a role too?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely positioned and perceived as a sophisticated treat. You often see them in elegant boxes, making them popular as gifts.
Like a little box of jewels.
Exactly. Or just as a chic little indulgence for yourself.
Yeah.
That high-end image, combined with the taste and beauty, definitely fuels its desirability around the world.
And culturally, it just seems to be everywhere. Social media, movies, fashion.
It really does pop up everywhere. Its visual appeal makes it perfect for platforms like Instagram. But beyond just looking good, it's become this powerful shorthand, hasn't it? A little edible symbol of French elegance, of refinement, of that particular kind of culinary artistry.
It's amazing how much meaning can be packed into something so small and delicate.
It really is.
So, reflecting on all this, it's been quite a journey. From potentially a simple almond biscuit brought over by an Italian queen, through regional variations, then the Parisian invention of the sandwich cookie, the elevation by great chefs mastering that incredibly tricky technique,
Right.
to becoming this global icon of flavor and style.
It's a fantastic story. And it really captures this blend, doesn't it? There's centuries of tradition there, but also incredible artistry in the making and this constant, relentless innovation, especially in flavor. It's old and new at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. So, as we wrap up, maybe something for you, our listeners, to think about. The next time you see a macaron, maybe just take a second to appreciate the complexity hiding inside that pretty shell.
Yeah, think about the history, the precision, the skill that went into it.
And perhaps, if you get the chance, seek out a really good one, an authentic one. Taste the difference the dedication makes. Or, if you're feeling particularly adventurous, maybe even try making them yourself.
Huh. Be prepared.
Be prepared, exactly. But attempting it, even if you don't quite nail it the first time, it definitely gives you a profound respect for the craft, for the blend of science and art that creates this little bite of luxury, something to savor long after the last crumb is gone.